back with a cherry something or another hemp. Is there any, for somebody like me who's fascinated by breeding, there's only 2 people involved in breeding inside of Carolina that I'm aware of, and I've been involved with the kind of focal point of the whole state and whatnot. Is there any suggestions as far as like somebody that like has access to high THC seeds, but any suggestions as far as people that want other CBD strains, like as far as playing around with stuff in a place where there is nothing yet? Is there, like as far as developing something for the area kind of deal, is there, where would we start with that? Other than getting a cherry something or
well, the cherry, the thing is, what you notice with a lot of CBD is you just see that terp profile in common, but I got stuff that's gassy and earthy that's CBD too, right? So I know it's there. And I got stuff that's mandarin orange, so I know it's there too.
But how do we break away from all the cherry strains that
you gotta go find, you gotta find somebody who's working those lines. The thing for you is that what makes your problem unique is that you gotta be under 0.03, right?
Right.
So it's gonna be under 0.03. So that's the limiting factor. And then most of this stuff was extracted or formed in derived. So the terps weren't as needed in the way we thought of satisfaction because people were using it for medical work. And so once we put the word medicine on, we can remove quality. And I know that's not what don't get me wrong. It's just that quality experience with using drugs is different than I need it to live. So if you need it to live, it could taste like pickles, and you'd consume it. But what you're seeing is you're seeing some really good breeders out of Oregon and out of Colorado that are doing really big population work. And I got a guy that I got turned on to that he has a triploid. He has a plant that can't be pollinated. And so what he can do is he can use that plant in areas where you have pollen drift, and it lets him have a non-pollinated plant that comes in around 14, 15% CBD, under 0.03 THC, with incredible production, beautiful vigor, resistance, and quality profile. So I'll give you, give me your email or something, and I'll just tie you into my friend from Colorado who's a professional breeder who breeds hemp professionally for multi-thousand acre operations.
We need reliable sources.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Is I get hit for this all the time, and I'm always pumping over to James because that's what James does. And so I'm somebody who tries to be like a good network, where that's not what I do. I sift out CBD varietals so that I have a range of ratios. I like 20 to 1s, I like 10 to 1s, 15 to 1s, 2 to 1s. And what it does, it lets me have enough source material to give the material to people that need it. So I can hold these CBD varietals, and people say, hey, I have children that have issues, we need to get it to where it's minimal THC. But I have epilepsy, then I might need to have a higher ratio, 2 to 1, with overall higher numbers. And then I got people that want to smoke weed to relax them because they feel racy from cannabis being too THC dominant, but they don't like the flavor of CBD pot. So I have some stock that's more earthy and more gassy, so when you smoke it, it's good pot. I mean, you like it as a pot smoker, but it doesn't make you feel overly accelerated. And so they're there, but I don't work with hemp per se because that's not my population. But because of what I do in terms of moving plants continuously, I'm getting contacted by people all the time, and you end up meeting some really, really sharp people that are career farmers with degrees in breeding, who understand what they're doing and have thousands of acres of people to play with. So they can definitely do the searching, they can find the outliers, and if they're in business and they have a reputation and you're punching out that much material, you've got to be real.
So it's a matter of getting stock from
you need to get stock from someone like him.
Getting it to our place and then doing
running through your populations because because you're gonna be different in the Carolinas. You're gonna be facing different issues than he will in Colorado, and so you're gonna have to go through and find the outliers that have the pathogenic resistance. But the bottom line, it's there in the material. And then from there, what you start to do is you start to have the material you need. You just need to get it from people that are reputable. And the problem right now is because it's a hemp revolution, everybody and their brother's selling seed material, and people are just getting wiped out. And in Oregon, you got a lawsuit for literally like $20–30 million because these guys knowingly put stock into the market, and it pollinated everybody's work, and it destroyed the extraction potential. And the problem was the guys that bought it did a huge operation, and they're suing them for huge money, and it'll set precedent in terms of accountability. And that's all well and good, but you know, the lawsuit costs money. You got to pay for the lawyers, and so if this wasn't a funded individual, he couldn't pay the lawyers to chase his justice. And so for small operators, you just get screwed because lawyers aren't gonna pick it up and say, hey, let's go chase this down because it's a risk to them. And so for you, what you need is just access. And so before you take off, just give me your email, and I'll forward you James's contact. And I got nothing to do, like same thing. I got nothing to do with him except I respect him because I know what he does, which is punch out huge quantities of commercial hemp seed for the hemp industry. And I've been referring people to him all over the place just because he's somebody I know who's solid. And he got his act together, and he specializes in hemp. He made the decision years ago to go to hemp because he knew cannabis was just a dying field for him in Colorado. And he said, hey man, I'm a commercial farmer, I got all this acreage, I went into hemp, we went this direction, I pulled out some killer outliers, we've made some really good lines, we're selling a lot of seed. So you just need access. Easy.
Along those lines with the hemp, I'm looking to develop some regionally specific hemp strains, and I'm interested in talking to you in particular about your blueberry strains. Does anybody have any practical knowledge as far as if I've got a North American Landrace hemp strain that comes in at .02 and I want to cross it with something indigenous to the New England region with mold and mildew resistance, something with a little blueberry in it maybe, would you want to cross a male to a high THC female, or would you want to go to the reverse, like looking at specific genetics?
Yeah, the answer to that question is we don't know. You don't know. You know, the way these alleles are going to match up, it's a crapshoot. I've thrown a male that's got a great structure. I wish it was on every plant, and depending on the female you throw that into, the progeny just might not come out with that structure or with the blueberry. All you can do is try. Now you can do some research and know a little bit about the material that you're working with. Is the female heterozygous or homozygous? You know, does it the progeny that come from it, are they all different? Like for instance, the Afghan 5 you told me throws a killer zoo of stuff, and whenever everything I popped that you ran the 5 into was something different. I had the Louis the 13th was I grew one was 14 feet tall, and the one next to it was 6 feet tall, an orb, and then the next one was you know, say 8 or 10 feet tall, but it had branches that just wanted to you know, didn't have any apical dominance at all, and, you know, so the question is, you know, what's the parental stock like, and you never know what you're going to get. I mean, you can have a real good idea, and like for instance, the Ken Dog Special Reserve, I passed out a bunch of those seeds earlier, and I still do have some of those, which are some got some work that you did crossed into those. Those are a lot more homozygous, you know, and whenever I pop those, but I got one chocolate pheno out of the Ken Dog Special Reserve. I popped every one of those at once, and one of the females was just super chocolatey. You know, lots of it had the high resin production, so I got lucky on that one. And yeah, I don't know about the blueberry as far as what do you see when you run into that?
Well, I haven't really bred CBD strains, so I really don't have much experience with CBD strains. I grew my first CBD strain this past year, and it was from seed, and it was, every plant was intersexed, so that was gone. Yeah, it was a Charlotte's Web crossed with some type of hemp, so they don't really, at least what I've heard in hemp production, they don't select for intersex qualities as much as we are, because it's obviously a lot more detrimental to our industry. But I do have a bunch of CBD strains that I got this year. I got HBK's Charlie, which is 2-to-1. It's an Afghani skunk crossed with a Canatonic. And then I got Mean Gene Freeborn Selections. I got his Pina, which has some CBD phenos. And the thing about that one is that it has some CBD melt, and which is pretty unique, where you can actually make bubble hash that has some CBD in it. So I'm going to be popping a bunch of those and working those, and I'll have cuts of those for people to try out too once the season comes up.
Yeah, if we knew how to throw a specific flavor profile on top of a certain chassis and do it every time, we would be really, really rich people.
What you need to do though is you're selecting for numerics, right? And so what you need to do is you need to go find you a testing lab and explain to them about how many of these plants are you actually gonna test. And you need to work a deal. You need to say, listen, I'm gonna commit to this much money with you guys, and what it's gonna do is it's gonna give you a better price point. And that's the advantage I've had for so long, is that I've been involved with so many different laboratories and drove so much business into their hands that it allows me to get a radically different price on what I pay. So for me to do lab work is almost not an issue. So I test everything all the time. And every time I got a question, I'm like, lab it. Because it lets me know. So what it does for me is it lets me figure out the males that I'm trying to, I would build males for people. And so for me, I'm a preservationist, but my friends were like, hey, we need hotter numbers on our varietals. And I would go take and engineer males that when you threw it on top of something against multiple cultivars, what it did that I sought primarily was bring it up 5 or 6 points. So it puts you into a sellable range. And I used all numerics for those sifting processes where I figured out which of the parental stock that are driving it, how does the progeny come out, and I started being able to compress the populations until eventually I started having populations with just really disproportionate ratios, disproportionate totals, and high levels of unconverted CBG. And so when I see the unconverted CBG in juvenile, I know that I have a tremendous amount of horsepower left on tap. And so if I have a big number with low CBG, and I have something that's a little less with big CBG, I always go with the bigger CBG. And then I know I have more cannabinoid cookbook to work with. But I have to label them, and I have to hold them in redundancy, and I have to run the progeny, and I have to test the progeny, and I have to see what's my total distribution of success in the way I want. Is it all over the place? Is it scattered? And what you find is that on a lot of stuff, when you're trying to get into some of these projects where you're really nailing 95, 96% of the plants at this level of numerics, that's a lot of work and time. And sometimes it's just easier to source the material, get somebody who's done the work, bring it in, produce the plants in clonal form so that you have the ability to actually get your product out. And then over time you can work with it, and what you can do is you can get involved in breeding projects, and you can then take the plants that you'd like to see infused into something and enter them into a project with someone else. Joint collaborations. I do joint collaborations with people a lot where they hit me up and say, hey, we want to do a breeding project, can you find me a plant that does this? And I said, awesome, just kick me back some seed. And bam, now we're able to do what we want to do. You're going to be in the same position because you're having to breed for something very important. If you exceed the level, they cull your field. And so you can't play a game on that when everyone's like, yeah, we just cut it early. You just do your orange phytonics. Orange phytonics is like 30 grand for a box. It lets you test everything. Well, that's nice. I got to go spend 30 grand, and I got to go test every plant all the time. How the hell do you do that in real life? I need to know basically the majority of my crop is going to be at a level that's going to be below this cutoff point. And if you're doing it for business, it's going to be brutal. And so what you do is you do the same thing. You play this game and you develop the work, and you start to contact breeders who do hemp breeding where they have consistent stock, and you ask, hey, how can I get involved in this? How can I share the material? How can I get access to what you're doing? And you go forward. Otherwise, if you're looking at conventional plant breeding, I mean, most plant breeding projects are, by themselves are like 20 years. So if you're looking at the Stargazer Lily, which is to me one of the greatest projects ever done, Wes did that for over 20 years. He was hunting and sifting and building, and then he got screwed. So you got to be really clear about what your desire is. And most people, they want to do a thing, but like it might be better to be part of something. And then you're able to allow someone else to have done all this work on, I have a male that lays this trait, I have a female that when we breed into it, it always brings the numbers down to a level, and then you'll be able to start from there.
I'm in Vermont, in southern Vermont. UVM's actually looking at this problem, and they're trying to change the taxonomy, so then we're not depending on numbers and cumulative variance, because everyone on the shelf is running hot, and they're just not testing.
That's why they're running cherry wine too, because it has the highest percentage number.
Yeah.
So that's why you're seeing so much cherry wine, because it mostly pops up very low.
Yeah.
Bow wax look about 20 to 1. I ran a cherry bow wax this year, and I had numbers all over the place. So I cut out bow wax, and now I'm stuck with cherry wine from my male, which smells like lime, not cherries, by the way. And plenty of banana phenos out there, grape phenos, and this all comes off of the cherry. You know what I mean? So just by popping 400 cherry seeds, you're gonna see a lot of phenotypical variation that you can take in any direction that you want to take. So I chose a male that is Lyme. I have 2 males that are pretty much identical, and I'm hoping I get some Lyme out of them this year, but I won't know my numbers until I test them this year. So, know until you put the work in, you know what I mean?
So, I guess my question is a little bit of the upcoming future, because of how cannabis is viewed federally, and everything like that. If federally it becomes legal, and big corporation is allowed to come in, what is that really going to mean for breeders and people that want to be getting into breeding? Because, and what I mean in that regard is, what's going to prevent, Pepsi or Coca-Cola or something like that to slap their name on a genetic, be like, this is my genetic, you have to pay me an ass ton of money just to make sure that no one else is going to.
It's already happening. That's the thing is, the utility patent's already out there.
Right.
Okay? And I just met the legal team that patented Bubba Kush. So I just met those guys the other day, and they patented Bubba Kush. But most of these utility patents are stuff like, 1-to-1, no myrcene, anything that fits into that utility. Now you can challenge them because they're broad, but you got to get lawyers to do it. The bottom line is what you're trying to do is work with what you can and start to take a look at how you protect plants in a multitude of fashions. This guy named Jerry Whiting from LeBlanc One put together breeders' rights. And these documents start to be able to help you understand what do we do with the plants that we have, who has rights, how do you license, what do you do to work, how can you stamp inception. And the thing is that you are already competing with these people because they're already here doing the work. And so you got medicinal genomics doing mapping, you got Phylos doing mapping. What they're doing is they're mapping the plant to find the alleles so they can understand how to breed it. So they're first, so to speak, but as soon as these larger companies light up, they're going to come at it with a vengeance.
Right.
And they're going to come after specific stuff. And so anything medical will no longer be in our hands as far as I'm concerned, because they're going to control it. Pharmaceutical are going to say, listen, it has to be this, it has to be lab grade, standardized. You'll see it shift into indoors, and you'll see them control that material. Hemp is going to be under, John Deere. So as soon as they figure out how to get the mold propensity dialed back, they're going to start punching it on in Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, and you're gonna see this at a level that's gonna blow your mind, because they're gonna change it into the new biofuel. They're gonna do fiber extraction. They're gonna use it for all these methods, but from seed through huge equipment, combines. You're not gonna be able to touch it. So why you gotta be careful with where you steer your direction. You can't be craft in a commercial world.
Right.
But with cannabis that's used for quality of experience, you can. And if you use hemp material and you're not calling it hemp because it's hemp, you're allowing it to be cycled under cannabis regulations, then you're able to take that and move that into this world of highly regulated products, but less of a competitive edge against major companies, because once we get into hemp, it'll go global on that. But the rec products, a lot of that is the subtleties and nuances, and that's not what the larger companies want. What they want is standardization. They want to be able to have the same thing come out all the time. They're not worried about it. Coke's Coke, but there's a lot of micro soda companies, and Bud's Bud, and there's a lot of micro beer companies. And what people don't really catch a lot of times is in the West Coast, people use the alcohol model a lot. But the problem is when you go into the store and you see 700 labels, there's really about 13 companies that all own 700 of them. So most of these micro models have been sucked up by the bigger company. Down deep, you have to kind of understand that that might be the inevitability for part of what you do. So what I did a long time ago was I figured out emotionally, what am I connected to? That's my farm. Everything else, business. So this way I'm not emotionally broken when someone says, what do you mean you're going to sell your stores? I said, you're damn right. I said, you're not going to compete with Walmart. When they come in and say, listen, you're making money, you have a market share, we want to buy you, you let them take it. Because otherwise they're going to just kill you. And so there was this phrase from Pablo Escobar called a plata de plomo. And it basically meant silver or lead. You either take the money I'm handing you or we're going to kill you. And that's kind of how I see the future. So what you got to do is you got to be able to figure out in what you're doing, where is the thing that you need the most to feel good about your future? And then every other thing you do is about how do you turn that into cash conversion as you go forward. And so if you can come up with cultivars that are killer, then you'd be able to sell these. You'd be able to get, so doing your development isn't a bad thing, because the bottom line is small breeders have been popping killer stuck up forever. It's just that once you give it to the large company, they own it. Now they can take it and they can do work with it you couldn't. But there's no way you're going to compete with any of these monsters on a scale. It's just that what you're trying to do is get the material you have now that's unique, start to go this open cannabis project. So look that up, that's Beth Schechter. These are people that are trying to help you understand how to protect your IP. Beth comes from the tech industry, where this stuff is, the #1 IP protector is really plastics, because they don't even have to disclose what they use. They say that it's so competitive, that's why everybody's so sick from plastic contamination, because they don't have to tell you what's in it. Because they say that that would release the information and reduce our competitive edge. And so I don't think anything's more protected than plastic, because it's such a massive industry and they have the ability to create that structure. But with what's going on right now, you have an opportunity to start getting things that you can protect that are yours, and find a way to get licensing agreements in place so that you can then have an ability to be valid as you go forward, and start to figure out, all right, don't put all my eggs in one basket. And you have to see it that way. The farms are different, because if we can take the farms and create craft cannabis, and then food production, and then some form of social stimulation like semi-tourism, where people can come and check it out. You can have things occur at the facility to help offset costs. You know, that's life, because you need to live somewhere. You got to have a place to eat. That works for you. But on any other model, realize that the best thing that could happen is you create something that has a value that can be acquired by somebody who's going to come in. And everybody's talking about who's here right now. These big companies are here. These guys are nothing compared to who's coming next. So when I talked to all the investors in Europe when I was over there years ago, and I was hanging out with the scientist from Bayer, and he was showing me the 500 million square foot research facility with molecular biology labs and extraction facilities below this thing, and I was just like, oh, I got you. I got you. We're not in the same business, and this is all funded through pharmaceutical. I said, I got you. We need to create things that we can then sell to these people, because you can't compete with them head to head. You're not going to get it. And what you want to be able to do, though, is start to take a look and find out what's your rights as a breeder, what's your rights and protections that you use. And people like Beth from the Open Cannabis Project are cool, and they're there to give you an assistance, because she's ethically driven to see people not get screwed on losing this type of thing. And what it does, it allows us to be able to create stability in the cultivars we use, the seed lines we use, so that everything you produce isn't the Monsanto model, where they own the patent, and all of a sudden pollen drifts and lands in your yard. They come over to your yard and they sue you because you have their stock.
Right, and that, from what you were saying earlier, I guess that's kind of what got in my head. It's like, how effectively do we prevent, almost another culling, as it were, of all these different cultivars, and have it kind of go into the blend, oh, this is the hip weed, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have all those, as you said, the strains that fall on the edges.
Yeah, Strainley's doing breeder rights. LeBlanc, Jerry did breeder rights. Open Cannabis Project's doing breeder rights. All these individuals are putting together protections so that you're able to understand how to do that, because really none of us spend our time doing that.
Right.
And if you have an ability to get the education from them and say, look, this is where I'm at, this is what I have, what do I need to do to protect what I'm working with? What I did with a lot of stuff was I put it into open source, meaning that it was freely available, and then we threw it on Phylos to date inception. So it just says basically, we had it before you did.
Right.
And I did that because all these varieties that I was trying to mark is the ones we were all using. And I didn't want to see the people, myself included, not be able to use these varietals. And I didn't want to see all my friends get nailed because we've all been sharing this stock, and all of a sudden none of us are in business. And I'm like, look, they're going to have to say that they had an invention on it prior to this. So if it's a process, they can say proprietary process, but if they're saying that, hey, we control these plants and they're clearly marked and stated, how can they say they invented it when you've already stamped it in this form? It just starts to create a problem of proof. And then you have to go to the next level and make sure you're getting your attorneys to help you, and that's a special type of attorney. So that's why I say, you know, when you get together in groups, you can say, hey, listen, we all grow some of these similar things. Let's combine our resources, let's protect it. And each individual always wants to be the one that owns a thing. But the truth is, if you get a couple of you together, you can team up your monies, and then you can have it under a joint ownership.
Right.
And now there's a bunch of you that have the ownership, and now you have an ability to run a product that you're going to be able to run for time. And if it's a great product and it has a hot demand, it'll go. And you know, when I saw this, there was a brewery in San Diego I just drove by, Ballast Point Ale. They sold for $1 billion. A microbrewery sold for $1 billion to Constellation. $1 billion. That's real. If you have something that's valuable, these guys they'll take it. But it has to be protected. You have to build the brand. And then you have to have some kind of exit strategy for yourself to where, how do you emotionally stay cool with what you're doing? Otherwise, all you're doing is building things to move it. That means you're really more of a venture capitalist investment kind of guy, and most of us really aren't. We're more cultivation kind of guys and girls. And so, you know, check out the Open Cannabis Project. Take a look at Strainley's, look at Jerry LeBlanc's stuff. And any of these people will be able to give you some information, and they'll be able to start you trying to figure out how do you protect what you have so you don't get screwed. And then whoever becomes most knowledgeable about it can sit down and tell their friends, look, you're gonna get piped here. And then now you have an ability to protect something. You don't have to have everything, but you have to have one thing that works well for you, that you can't lose. And if it's really genuinely good, it doesn't really go out of trend. It really doesn't. It doesn't touch the hot, but it's something that's stable. And if you have a stable product that works for time, you're all right. What did I see yesterday that blew my mind? Free-range lobster. I said, what the fuck is a free-range lobster? And I realized they must be growing them in tanks now and farming them in pens, and I was like, whoa! But it's stuff like that where these are the new realities of the world you're in, and all you need to do is have one thing that works well. And there are organizations that have information that you can use that don't require you to sell your soul to get it.
Right.
And that's what I would do.
Because one of the biggest things that I'm seeing, like I came from Washington, I worked with the original GG strains. Like the farm dollars on, we had specific rights to use that. Coming back over here to the East Coast now, it's like, oh yeah, I got GG4 cross or GG5 cross, and it's like, okay, so you mean new glue or original glue? It's like, oh yeah. Come to find out, it's, you know, a hand-me-down of a hand-me-down. Kind of what's, and again, it's more so what's to prevent, you know, the big corporations from being like, no, you can't have anything unless you pay us, and that's kind of like where I was getting at with that.
And that's modern farming.
Right.
And the thing is, you know, and it's not going to change. There was a girl in the back with the
Something that's going
hat.
to be rolling in.
I was just wondering why and how cultivars started being called strains.
Yeah, that's a good question. I was asked how the hell strand came out, but I guess because it's a strand of DNA, and if you're in science, you know, it should be lines. At one point it was lines, it was breeding lines and genetic lines, and then they get into strain, I think, because of bacteria. And so people said, hey, you start crossing borders. And cannabis was really, it wasn't, you couldn't merge it into the real world, and so it started developing its own little hybrid education, and phrases come along, and it just stuck. And so strand, strain, I used cultivar for a long time because I went to school for nursery practices, right? And so cultivar was cultivated variety. It was things that were chosen from lines that you specifically desired because of their properties. And so I always used cultivar, and people used to crack on me saying, oh, you're using these fancy words. And I'm like, yeah, but it describes what I'm doing better than what you're doing, because I'm not growing bacteria. But I don't bust people on that, because the bottom line is whatever you learned it's okay. It's just that you need to understand what they mean, so that if you're talking to somebody who's in another field, your vocabulary matches up. But, you know, cannabis was so underground that you know, and most of the books that you got were faulty. And I realized that a long time ago when I looked at the grow guides and I was reading them, and I would find mistakes, and I would realize that they didn't write them. Because if you had written the book, you would have said, hey, this is the exception to what I told you in chapter 2. You'd say, I told you to do that, except here. They don't tell you that, which means they didn't write chapter 2. And so years go by, and I get asked to be part of all these books. And they're like, hey, if you pay us to do the chapter, you can have a chapter in a grow book. And I'm like, that's some crazy shit. You're pay for play. And so I'm not into that. And the fact of the matter is that you end up having a tremendous amount of information that come from people who have funding, but not necessarily true experience. And so I think that for cannabis people, we've been radically undereducated on the reality of cultivation science. And with the Regen conference and things like this, it's where you start to really begin to dive back into the science, because you get people who are brilliant scientists that can say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're working with, this is what we call it. And then you become a good interpreter of that. So I never claimed to be a scientist. Like I said, my mom was a scientist, and it broke her heart that I didn't want to go that direction, but I was more of a pirate. I wanted to get on the high seas like Captain Morgan, and it fit my personality better. But what I try to do is I try to maintain some basis of scientific knowledge, so that when I talk about a subject, it's accurate, and you can use that later on, and you can use it in conversation, and nobody's going to make fun of you and tease you about how you're all jacked up. But that's the truth, man. Most of the stuff in cannabis is just voodoo and witch doctor stuff. And now you're starting to get real science. Yeah, straight up. You just got to accept it. Yeah.
Through like the bag seed comment that came over here, I guess that's, one of those things when it comes to searching for new genetic stock or new directions. Between the late 90s and the early 2000s and what's going on in Amsterdam, feminizing seeds, and all of us not actually having stock on East Coast, say, and getting a lot of, your buddy has a bag of seeds, he smokes the best weed there is, and these are the seeds that came from it. But that's also seems to be where all these problems have come from, in trying to search, stable things to run in lines. So it's like back to her comment earlier, on those, the seeds she pulled from the bag and her cellophane or whatever, she's going to go in the next year. She's wondering what to do with those. Everyone tells her not to do anything with them. So it's kind of looking at the population we have in culture and saying, what do we do with any of these if there's such a problem that comes along with intersex or issues with, stressing and things? What is clean genetic material beyond just like viruses?
Run it and test it.
Right.
Out of a pack of Northern Lights basically came the white. Right. The cheese.
It only takes a few.
Out of some Sensi seeds, you got the cheese. You got stuff that they built entire billion-dollar empires from a pack of seeds that just popped out. So that's the beauty of me of genetics. Genetics is the one thing that allows people that are poor to rise up. Because in the gene pool, all of a sudden you have musicians, mathematicians, artists, athletes, shit you can't hold back. So to me, if you get bag seed, I used to always play with it. I used to love running Mexican bag seed because I loved some of the flavors that came out of it when we cultivated it. Now it's almost all gone, but I love some of those pieces. What you got, brother?
When you're testing your males, like at what maturity would you test your male? Would you test the whole plant? Would you take flower completely out and test the whole thing?
Well, when I'm testing males, I'm doing it early to make my population sifts easier. So I do it in juvenile stage, and what I noticed is that with THC varietals, they seem to hold constant through their production points. So if I'm looking for THC, it's easier than CBD. When you produce a CBD plant, it doesn't fluctuate crop to crop. But as a juvenile, if I mark it, it doesn't always hold true to the bitter end. So you have to run your CBD to completion to get a more accurate perspective of what you're going to get for totals and ratios. But for THC varietals, we noticed it was pretty accurate, more so. And so I'm running them when I have enough material. I'm doing sex testing. If I want to do scientific testing, I only need the plant to produce a first true leaf. So we're talking 5 inches. I need to be able to give at least a gram of dried material to the lab to test for predicative. And that means probably, 4.5 inches of green material off the top. So I'm letting the plant get this high, 1.5 feet. I'm lopping 5 inches off. I drop it into a brown paper bag. I put one staple so it's in the bag so it can dry and it doesn't mold up. I put the tag on it so I know what it is, and I fill boxes with these things. And I send that all out to the lab. My list comes back. It gives me all my information. That information lets me know that these over here have little. And so, like for me, I've done this a lot. So the thing is,
Are you getting terpenes too at this point?
yeah, but the thing is, you're going to have some terpenes, but they're not going to reflect the bigger picture because you're not having the whole response coming. Because remember, so many of these terpenes that you're working with are bioprotectants. So is this plant having to protect itself from anything? No. And are you biologically charging this up enough to start getting these relationships? And terpene profiles swing and change through time. And so you'll notice that there's always this optimal point of picking a plant based off of how it smells and its potency. And you're trying to find that sweet spot within them. And so for me, in terms of like, I'm trying to run a crop for multiple years, right? So I don't get into anything that I don't think is going to have at least 3 years of worth. If it doesn't have 3 years of worth, and I determine that by smoking, and I go, all right, I got you, this is quality, there's 3 years worth of work here. Let's find out what we want to do with this. Because that way I know I have at least 1,000 days to figure this out. And by the time I get to 3 years, if it was really hot or there was trends moving, it'll move out or it'll decrease in value. But I'm able to get it in the first year, optimize it the second year, run it out the third year, and then if it's going to continue, awesome, but if not, we can move on to something else. And so I do all my predicative testing early. It gives me a very clear picture of what I'm trying to do. And for me, that's only for potency analysis. Morphological traits we can pick out once we get them to open up. But fundamentally, man, the only way to really know is to run it. You've got to run it, and the numbers never give you in the mouth quality. You have to experience it. And the only way you can do that is to do it on a standardized testing. So I can sample weed constantly and give you an idea right now. But if I want to really know what the cannabis was like what was the true experience, I smoke it the same way. And I used to always do it the same way. I get in my car, I smoke it when I leave my house. In 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I get onto the highway as I go through the redwoods. So it gives me 15 minutes to smoke on a nice easy road where I'm happy. And it makes me feel good to see the redwoods and the river. And then I get on the highway, which is a freak show. And now I have an hour of the same stress of driving on a strip. And I use that to standardize my experience. And what it does, it lets me know, how'd you like it? Because I'm burning it, I'm flicking it into the tray. Now I drive, and I go, nah, or I'm like, wow, that was really good grass, man. That's a good one. Let's mark it. Without that, you're not going to get the second and third buy. You've got to create things that have an incredible value, and even if the numbers are low and it's unreal, you hold that back, and you use the higher numbers to drive awareness to your brand. And once you get people to come into your life, you can expose them to this and then say, here, try this. And then you'd be like, incredible, huh? Can you believe it's only 14.4 with 2.2 terps? And they're like, whoa! Isn't it just kicking the shit out of everything else you're smoking? And they're like, whoa! And then what you're doing is you're giving them an education, but when you try to tell them, this is better, they don't want to listen to you. So outlier cannabis that is incredibly active to use psychoactively and in the mouth and in the nose, priceless. Just put it aside, realize that the sale point will happen over time, just not maybe today. And then you do all your predicative work to find outliers that are going to be hot numbers, and those become extraction varietals. Because if it's in the mid to high 20s, oh my God, extractors love you. And they need you. They need those numbers to make it worth their time to run the columns. And that's so I separate it, because people are like, man, you're numbers obsessed. I said, no, I'm sales obsessed. I said, you're sitting on a block and I'm not. And I need this to happen, but I make sure I always hold outlier cannabis that I think is exquisite in the smoke, regardless of its numbers. And we can always use that to introduce. That's what you bring with you when you want to meet people, when they want to experience you as a grower. You're hitting them with stuff that's crippling them. And then you tell them, this is my stuff, but the numbers are low, so we hold it back. I run these other varieties, and then it allows the people who are dealing with you to realize that you understand the market, you understand the reality of a store and how they have to sell it, and if they have to convince everybody how quality your stuff is, they're already lost. And so you kind of approach both ways. Do predicative testing, talk to a lab, get a couple of your friends together so you can drop the prices, and run it. And then do it early, talk to your lab techs, And then they'll be able to start to find outliers where all of a sudden you realize, whoa, we got a massive THCV strain, we got a CBG strain. What was that? What was the, Big Steve, what was that cannabinoid that you were talking about the other day? That was
CBT.
CBT. And matter of fact, that's who you want to talk to for the aquaponics.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? So this way now you know, thank you for coming in the room. And that's how I approach it, you know? It's you're not selling out, man. You're clearly trying to define what you're doing. And laboratory work lets you get there quicker. And then experience lets you stay in a position of respect from people who are in the smoke, where you're not just another lab pumping stuff out. You're not another commercial guy just pumping stuff out. You're not looking for trendy. You're looking for quality experience. And then that lets you, they go, oh, you have taste. They trust your judgment. And then you show them you have hot numbers for the extract, and they realize that you're about making money. And now you're something people want to play with. Anybody else got a question? Boom. All right, hang on. Do one quick. You got 1 or 5? Okay, one. Then we're going to 5. All right, let's.
So I know you and Woodstock Pharmacy and you, Kevin, both have Instagrams. How do we get a hold of you two?
Chadwick Rhodes, I'm on Instagram.
Chadwick Rhodes, all right.
Kinetic Sunground.
So,
I have some business cards too. Should have all my info on it. So.
Say that. What was that?
So Cape Nedic, the town, southern Maine. Cape Nedic Sunground. I also have cards with all my contact
How do you
info.
spell that?
Neddick.
Cape Nedic.
Right on the coast. And
Gotcha. You want to repeat that?
Chadwick Rhodes, R-H-O-D-E-S.
Oh, gotcha. Awesome. Congratulations again on the bachelor's.
Thank you.
Sweet. All right.
Yeah, just for any information on anybody trying to get tested around here, Nelson Analytical, they purchased tested labs out of Falmouth, and they're running new business programs, and those ladies have got everything down like awesome. I mean, they're bringing it, it's going to be a really good standard for everybody in their testing. That's Nelson Analytical down south. Second, have you guys ever used Folio Grow? Or have you heard about Folio Grow? Folio Grow is built by a guy named Brett Strauss and Demoscu Perry. I can't say it last name, sorry. But they're down in Texas. Folio Grow is a program for breeders and most people growing on large scale with multiple rooms, multiple tables, multiple cultivar in one room. Folio Grow is a program in which you do is you have a base where, like if you're the breeder, you run it and all your workers can log in information about each cultivar individually. You get an algorithm for each breed, each strain. It's easier to find the cost per grow. It's an amazing program, it really is, and I think it might eventually become one of the standards in business in cannabis because of the way that it records everything from where they're trying to follow seed to sale in a lot of states. It programs, I mean, it's amazing. As long as you do all the database in the back and put it in, it shows you what you were doing wrong, why you added this emulsion to this strain, but it didn't do it to this one, and it gives you actual data, raw data. It's quite
As long as you log it.
What's that?
As long as you log the data.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta start it.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
just assume you put in some
You gotta log the
information.
data. Yeah, you gotta log the data, but it gives you the ability to do that.
Yeah, and it actually has a global platform to where breeders, like you were saying, if you're in northern Cali or southern Cali or middle, and you guys are all growing the exact same strain, you guys can go on a global platform, and I mean you can only see so much information, but it's easy for if you have an account with Folio Grow to go to other breeders and find out why my GG4 or my ECSD than East Coast Sour D, or what people actually really know in Massachusetts, West Springfield Sour D. But it just gives you an actual communication and not a bunch of confusion, because forums nowadays can be a little hard to follow because not everybody in there is reputable, I'd say.
Opinion based.
Not
everybody in there is
what's that?
Not everyone knows how to be civil.
No, it's for real. The internet destroyed relationships because you can behave in a way with anonymity that allows you just to reveal. I kind of like it. I use it to vet people. I'm somebody who gets asked to have a trillion friends, and I don't have that many in life. And I don't have that many on the internet either. Because what I want to do is I allow you to misbehave so I can see it. And if you treat people like shit, I know you're going to treat me like that. And I have no time for it. I have no time to engage with you in a fight, and I have no time for this crap. And what happens is you end up turning off all these people that are into that, And so I use the net different. I use it to just share life, meet people, do things. And and when I see you acting like a clown, I just know that's just who you are. And nowadays, everyone's trying to fight for fame, and the only way most of them can get it is to throw mud at someone else, and then it gets some followers, and that's how you're doing your stuff. And so it scares people off. So forums work because you can see topics and you can see things, but
I mean, that's how I learned.
you find people that are decent on the forum, and you try to chase them down privately. And then the first thing you ask them is, I don't want any money, and I'm not trying to get any of your private stuff. That's the first thing I say to people when I approach you. I'm not looking for any money, and I don't want any of your private shit. I just want to talk to you.
I'd like to say all of us paid to come and listen to you all speak because it's knowledge.
Completely.
It's value in its own, just the knowledge and time and the way you've done for this industry.
But we're also making an ability for you to connect to us after this. So you can reach out and say, hey, I got a question, man. I didn't understand what you said. But if you were in here, I mean, I have people that are rude to me because that's just how they behave. And I just give them my work email, which means you're never going to get me. You are never in your wildest dreams, because everybody knows that my guys laugh because they know me, just like my phone number.
That's not our connection for the Colorado Hemp guy, right?
No. This is yeah. This is solid. The Colorado Hemp guy's solid. But the fact of it is that you have to be able to create a situation where you block that crap out of your life. And then what it does, it lets you connect to people that are pretty decent, and then you can share the information, because the stuff that you're talking about is pretty valuable for people who want to have the data logging to do this, and you can utilize it. There's other companies that do similar stuff, but they combine it with genomic mapping. So you're doing the mapping, then you're running the progeny, they're doing the sheets and the tests, so they can start to find the outliers and then record it, and then be able to say, hey, we've been able to prove that this did this here, and we have the traits to breed here. And it's imperative to know that. How do you spell the name of that company?
Folio Grow?
Yeah, is it F-O-L-I-O?
Like Folio, F-O-L-I-O. Yeah.
Folio Grow.
Yeah, like a portfolio.
Yeah, I'll go look that up. That's true.
His name's Brett Strauss. He's brilliant. He really is. He was an entrepreneur that got into it. He has nothing to even do with cultivation. He has some master growers from Colorado come down to Texas and help build his program with D'Amato is their computer expert. So they had like a team. They built an actual team. They brought knowledge from different fields and came together to build something that better purposes for all of us, And it's just, it's crazy that it hasn't gotten out that much yet. It's new, but it's like I got to see it on the backside.
What's it cost?
What's that?
What's it cost?
That I think you want to talk to Brett about. I got lucky. I kind of worked with the backside of it, so it was like a $30,000 investment for a company. But I mean, you also have the outlook to like a closed door communication with other breeders that it won't be out in the open really. It's kind of private. Some of the things you might want to do. I mean, not everything's private. You want to be able to share anything.
Some of the market jobs we're involved in, right? Some of the market specific projects. It's the same situation where we can all communicate, but your data is your data. So I can't take your data, but I can have an ability to access you, so we can kind of share concepts and ideas and figure out how you move.
You see why exactly and it's really awesome to be able to see how the program will individualize. Like if you're a soil builder and your input on the soil building, and then you get the guy that running the defoliation area or whatever he's in charge of this, and they all bring all that information from everybody's data, and it really is. It's great. You should check it out.
Thank you.
Probably all the way back to one of the first. It's definitely for you, sir. I grew up in northern just north of Athens, Ohio, and I was lucky enough to be able to try some Mexican gold as a child. And does anybody have lineage, or is that truly a skunk? Something that came off as a skunk, like a skunk one, Meigs County Gold.
Mexicani gold.
No, Meigs. Meigs County Gold. Yeah, that was an Ohio strain, cultivar staple. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, because I figured in the Indiana, it was young. It came out about 89 through 93.
Yeah, I was 94 to 96, 98 myself, and bubblegum was big right then. There was some Buckeye strain or something.
The Youngster eventually came out of I think it was eventually like a Deadhead OG that was genetic line.
Yeah, no clue. Myself personally, I keep myself narrowed down to what I'm working on, and the land races integrated into some of the older varieties is really kind of what I do. That's why I contacted Kevin,
trying to bring
because of the trust factor mainly.
Land races in the beginning, you know what I mean?
Well, that's, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, when most of us, like, honestly, I mean, with 10,000 hybridized strain, or, you know, cultivars out there, mostly for indoor growth, right? It's kind of hard to find an allele pattern that is true to its original cultivar with landrace. So if we find something that, you know, can definitively bring that tighter, not just as much so crazy runs, like, do you think that would better purpose for, like, main genetics, strains coming from Maine or made for these microclimates up here?
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to grow in Maine, you got to select in Maine. You really do, because just like we were talking about earlier, we got creme brulee and hollyweed, Royal Kush 7, and I couldn't get the 88 outdoor, but I got those 3 outdoor. And Kev told me, he gave me the lowdown on them. He told me that the hollyweed and the creme had fungal resistance, and I saw that in the creme, but I didn't see it in the hollyweed. And we find out that you know, it's a different pathogen over here.
And bulletproof for us.
And bulletproof for them. I mean, yeah, the stories are amazing. And so you gotta run. You've got to run what you're gonna be working with in your profile.
Yeah, and I figure like year after year, especially if I find I drop it, like I've got this special bag that I kind of hold on long. It's my bubblegum skunk. It's a real skunk with a real bubblegum I got from an old man named Craig. And every once in a while I'll drop a few of those just to bring myself back. It's like a 48 to 50 there. It's beautiful, but at the same time, I feel like it's just it's gotta be
Revamped a little?
What's that?
Needs to be revamped a little?
I don't know, man. That's the thing. It's with the older seeds. Like, how can you tell?
I like
the
to use
embryo?
land races for stuff like that.
What's that?
When you use a land race, they're pretty consistent, and when you pop a seed, they're, you know, pretty much all the same. So when you throw a land race into, per se, one of your hybrids, you're gonna notice that it's gonna be a lot like the land race or a lot like the hybrid. So it's easier to choose the phenotypes that you want to work with. So like when I threw the wedding cake into the Acapulco Gold, I was seeing 50% Acapulco Gold and 50% wedding cake, and only one in between. You know what I mean? So that it's really easy to identify what direction you want to take your plant in if you're using something simple like a landrace.
Do you find that the sativas to indica landrace is definitely going to dominate over your genetic alleles when you start to bring that in?
Depends on the parent you choose. You're going to have to find out by putting the work in.
Yeah.
The thing with landrace though is landrace means natural population, right? As soon as people put their hand on it, it's not really considered what we call landrace, cultivated variety. And so landrace to me is open pollination. People grabbed that population and they moved it to where they wanted to grow it, and they started to select their populations. It's a neck down population. So if you're getting stock from countries of origin, depending on where they selected it and what population they selected it, you'll see different levels of diversity. And so, man, I see some spreads that are unbelievable, which just means that there's an ungodly amount of genetic information within that plant. I like those because you're imparting all that diversity into your line so that you have, to me, survivability, because that's the only thing that matters with landrace, is that it was able to survive another year, reproduce, and go forward. It has one purpose in life, to reproduce. That's it. No other desire. Quality meant nothing. Quality was then selected by people who said, man, in that field of straw-looking pot, that one smelled good. Pull it out. That male was interesting. Pull it out. Put it together. Work the populations. And then each year, it picks up the genetic material, the epigenetics, the influence of the environment over time, the genetic memory, the packaging that you can move forward and utilize as a survivability tool. I'm using landrace stock because I'm trying to add different complexities to my profiles. I want to get something that's twisted different. I want another experience. I want something that's a little bit more unique. I want something that has some different qualities that you don't have. So that's why I mess with those things. And then I just got some Zamal. I got some stock from the Reunion Islands direct. A woman was over there doing sourcing material, and she brought me home a couple different varieties of the Reunion. And some of that stuff, if you were there, you know, you talk to the locals, they're saying that they've had plants that live 3 years, to where literally you can cut it and it will start to re-veg, come back, and you can cut it and it'll come back. And they've had varietals that have gone on for 3 years, almost like it's a perennial, which is amazing. But the varietals coming off of the Reunion Islands, the Zamal, rips the top of your head off. And so what I want to do is take this freak weed that has horrible finishing characteristics, 20 days. The longest I've ever flowered something was about 144 days. And so, and I did it for a while because I was caught up in hunting old hazes, and I just realized that, man, I'm working too hard and it's just not giving me what I want. I had to go through huge populations to find this stuff, and I just wanted to find out, can you do it? And you have to go ask yourself those questions, because what it does, it really helps educate you on the fringes of cultivation. Things that finish instantly, things that don't finish, things that have to be fed, things that can't take any food. You have to understand these swings so you know. But the Zamal stuff is ultra psychedelic, and I'm going to go take a male of that. I'll take the Zamal, and I'll put it all together in a common population, and then I'll start going into that Congo cut. Because the Congo cut's throttled back in time. So the Congo cut isn't exceptionally long. They did a really good selection process to get this unbelievable ethereal quality in a compact chassis. And I'm going to try to throw some of the Zamal on top of it so I can pull out some stock that just scares the shit out of you when you smoke it. And you need that, you know, every now and then you do. You need to be lit up. And it's stuff you don't smoke with regular people. You don't want to scare them. But you smoke it yourself, you know, and you're like, man, this is about to get wicked. And so I got some of this Zamal stock, but it's stuff like that, where once I make the open population and I create the seed stock, I'll be able to share some of those seeds, and you'll be able to access stuff that's supernaturally psychoactive from time, and then you'll be able to work on it, and you'll be able to work on it, and you'll be able to say, hey, I want to add a little of this to my plants. I'll go through the population, we'll find the ones that finish. You'll say, you know what, they don't do well here in Maine, but they do fine for somebody I know that's doing indoor in Maine. They do fine for somebody who has an ability to do greenhouse in Maine. And then you're able to get this stuff produced, and you have something that is so unique that it allows you to kind of carve a little chunk of the market off to where you're the person that did this production. And it opens the door for you to meet other people who want to trade material, who want to share material. You got to have something cool to trade. And once you have stuff that other people want, they'll make the deal. And so for me, you know, I got some of this crazy ass stock off of Martinez, and I can't wait to see it go off. But you know, 24 weeks, and you know what I'm saying. But the bottom line is, if we can find something in there that we can throw on something else, it's going to be unbelievable. But I expect some genetic diversity to be mind-bending on that stock. So you know, it's going to be one of those things where you're going to have to want to put the time in and take the efforts. But why not? What are we here for? What's the point? That's what regenerative is. You the rest of your life. Yeah.
Hey, I don't know if you've seen this Painted Forest Farms plant, the Australian bastard cannabis.
Seen in person.
I got a few of those going right now.
Yeah,
you do?
Yeah. They're very interesting.
They are crazy.
The germination rate was very low.
Yeah.
I popped 3 flats and maybe got 30 beans. I know close to 100 seeds, but yeah, it's really interesting. I can't wait to see what it does outside this year.
The freak show or something I see.
Yeah.
That one's beautiful with all the variation in the leaves.
Yes.
You know,
It's a sport, and it's a sport. So it's an anomaly, but it's desirable because it's so unique in what it looks like. And I saw the first guy that brought it out, and then Caleb from CSI got his hands on it. But I saw the guy that had it initially, and he was like, "Look what we found!" And I said, "Oh my God, it was the craziest looking plant you ever saw." And the bottom line is,
great for the nursery business, you know, just like along with the mums
it's
and
beautiful.
It looks beautiful in the garden. It's got to happen.
yeah,
You know?
but like translate to the bag, I'm sure it has no, you know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a flower yet.
I've seen some flower pics of it, and there's not much leaf on it, guys.
Right.
It's a lot of calyx.
Right.
And it's gotta be a hash maker's dream. I don't know the percentages on it, but man, high calyx to leaf ratio.
They were talking about some limes and lemons, so that's not.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking, limes on it. It looked lime green too. Yeah.
You know, beautiful though. In person, it looked like bonsai where they had compressed it because the internode spacing was so tight that it all of a sudden looked like they had made it compress. But really, that was. I only saw one when the guy brought it out the first time. I met the guy that had it, and he had it on
How
a
big
table.
were the leaves?
Was that at
Oh,
the
they're
demo?
small.
They're small.